Whack, whack, wow. Shai, I have regards for you from your aunt. I saw her today. And I mistook her for someone else anyway, but still, saw your aunt today. She says hi. Okay, the Newmans are in town. What's doing, Sach? I know. Sachi, you look how I feel. I feel how you look. This is Tzviman. Hashem. Okay. Very nice. You, Leb. I miss you. You still around? You still around Cleveland? You started a franchise, a Milky Way franchise somewhere. And then big news in Milky Way. Pacey, Mike's Chicken? Shh, everyone quiet. We have a very important announcement. Rob, if the end of this is that he's just taking over and managing a Milky Way, I'm going to be severely disappointed. Really? We're going to get a chicken joint. This is way overdue due to the population of Cleveland for us to have a kosher chicken joint. Yeah, that's going to happen. No, I mean, big news in Milky Way. We have Pacey adopted a baby. Did you hear about this? Huh? I know. I guys, I'm behind. Okay, I found this out this past. Yeah, I found this out this past Shabbos. I got tackled by Pacey, and he brought me home. I held the baby. Whoa, Lordy, Lord, that is a cute baby. All right, the baby's Down syndrome. I don't know what you were saying. It's a beautiful baby. It's a beautiful, beautiful baby. His name is Chaim. Okay. I hope I got that right. Let's jump in. So, Afura Gulgoyles. We were discussing last week. Afura Gulgoyles. Shetzafa Pnei Amayim. Hillel saw this Gulgoyles. One thing I forgot to mention last week, and it might be the only thing I mentioned on this Mishnah, but probably not. One thing I forgot to mention last week was that I was quoting the Maharal. The Maharal says something very interesting over here, that this is one of the times where this might not have happened. The Maharal says that this wasn't a real situation. Hillel wasn't just doing his baidus, we'll call it, in the woods, just hanging out by a stream, looked down and saw a skull over there. And there's a point to this. It's more of an analogy than it is anything else. The point was what he was trying to make. And he painted this picture on purpose of a person being drowned, which Rav Berkowitz actually pointed out that the lashon of the Mishnah of Yetufon and Mertafayach and Atfuch is not to be drowned; it's actually to be flooded. There's intention to a drowning, and that's what Hillel was trying to say. If your point, now the point we were making last week, is to stop the cycle, to break the cycle that we're in, to break the cycle of our lives, to break the cycle of generations before us, to break a cycle. However, what Hillel was trying to say, according to the Maharal, Rav Berkowitz's Pirush on the Maharal, was your point. He was talking to the skull. Your point was to flood another person. You always went outside of yourself. Someone quoted this to me. They misquoted it by the person. It's the actual person, I believe, was Byron Katie, who came up with this line. They said there's three kinds of business in this world. There's your business, other people's business, and God's business. You will never be happy. You will never be happy if you are living in either God's business or other people's business. What does that mean, God's business and other people's business? All points of anxiety, all points of stress, all points of delusion, all come from not living in my business. If I were to solely live in what it is that I can do in this world, the difference that I can make, the things that I can have control over, the things that I actually are able to control, as opposed to trying to control everything else around it, I will be calm no matter what. Because then there's never a reason to stress. But it's when I take into account and I try to think this person should be doing this, and Hashem should be doing it this way, and this should be happening this way, and this should be happening that way, that's where things go wrong, and that's where anxiety and stress come from. Yeah? What's that? So this is an interesting point I had to do on a different video this week. I think maybe we were just quoting that. I bought a credenza. I know.
That's how fancy you are. Nobody even knows what that is here.
A credenza is where'd Elia go? Elia? A credenza is like a Bugatti. But it's like a dresser. And it also doesn't cost a lot of money. Okay, it's nothing like a Bugatti. But it just sounds fancy like a Bugatti. If I was going to make a fancy company, I would call it credenza. I don't know. It sounds like a watch company, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit like a watch company. So, the Rolex credenza. I could definitely see that on a credenza is like a buffet or a sideboard or a, it's like, you know that thing that your mom lights candles on in your dining room? Oh, yeah. That's a credenza. It's not a dresser. It's not a dresser because it doesn't go into a bedroom. Although this one might have been in someone's bedroom in the 50s. This credenza is awesome. And I bought this credenza on a little thing called the Craigslist. And it's an antique. I love it. That's Shem. You guys come by the house, you'll see it. It's awesome. It's just awesome. It ties the whole room together, dude. Thank you. Woo! There was a big chance knowing, and then I would have been, I would have literally just walked, I would have had to just not even just walked out. You would have hot mic'd me all the way home being like, that's it, I give up.
The guys don't roll on shot.
Yeah, that's the problem. So I bought this credenza, and the minute I was like trying to get it, I'm haggling with the guy, and then it weren't answering for a while. I'm like, oh no, someone else bought it. I was all upset. Then Baruch Hashem, I got it. And the minute it like solidified, the guy's like, yeah, I'm going to come, I'll deliver it. I said to myself, I said to my wife, I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't such a good deal at the end of the day. Like maybe it wasn't so, right? Because at the end of the day, I got it. The only good deals are the ones that we missed. The ones we get, we're like, everybody could have gotten that one. Doge. Okay. Aside from that, I'm saying whoever born into Bitcoin like still knows they got it good. But and I was thinking to myself, like, why do we do that to ourselves? And you're right, it's human nature. It's human nature for us that when we get something, we're like, it probably wasn't that good to begin with, or I wouldn't have gotten it. But what is that idea? I don't deserve that. Clearly it's not good, because if it was given to me, it's not good. The only things that should be given to me are not good. I don't deserve better than that. That's human nature. Now, human nature, joy is a difficult emotion to allow. Pain is a difficult emotion to ignore. But joy is one of these things that we need to allow into our life. It's the same thing as peace and love and all other things. We need to allow it. We tend to have this antibody that fights against having joy in our life. We feel like if we enjoy our lives, if we start enjoying the way we live, we're gonna let our guard down And we're opening ourselves up to be hurt and to be let down. That's human nature. Our jobs are not to fall for human nature. Our jobs, rather, are to fight against that nature and grow. Say the famous, the Chavetz Chaim, I saw it brought down by the Chavetz Chaim, but Chavetz Chaim brings down the Medrash, Moshe Rabbeinu, with the king. And while the Yidden were in the Midbar, there was a king who heard about Moshe Rabbeinu, who heard about all the neflais that happened, and he sent his face readers. He had these face readers, people that knew the science or the kish of whatever it was of reading faces. They knew how to, and they were never wrong. And they went down to see Moshe Rabbeinu. And they came back to the king, and they said to the king, they're like, that is not a good dude. He is a Baal Taiva, he's a Baal Kas, horrible things they said about him. King said, I have a hard time believing that of all the amazing things I've heard. I want to go see for myself. So the king came down, went into the midbar. I don't know exactly how he knocked on the Amaran and whatever it was. They let him in, and he sat with Moshe Rabbeinu. He had a meeting with Moshe Rabbeinu, and he was blown away. At the end of the meeting, he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't understand something. My face readers are never wrong. They read you, and they read you completely wrong. How is that possible? Moshe Rabbeinu said, what did they tell you? And he said, they said that you are, I feel bad, but you are a Baal Kas and Baal Gaiva and a Baal Taiva. Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, those guys are good. They are good. They didn't miss anything. They're very good. The king said, but I'm sitting in front of you. I see that they were wrong. Moshe says, no. They told you what my nature is. They told you what's going on. They told you all the instinct that I have. But they can never tell you who I am. I fight that instinct every single day. I work on that every minute of every day. And that's why he was Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not because naturally his instinct was to be that way. It was because he worked. He lived within himself to fight that nature. So yes, you're right, human nature is going to be for us to always be existing and complaining outside of ourselves. As opposed to understanding the difference that we can make. Afu rel golgoyles, shetzafa pnei hamayim. And Hillel said, because you flooded others. What does that mean? Because you insisted on destroying other people. Your goal was to destroy other people. This is one of the first times, really, I'm saying if we're going to take into account Tanakh, it's not the first time, but definitely in Purkei Avos for sure, but in Mishnah, the idea of an energy going out into the world and being effective. We know, we see Avram, all the Avos did it at some point. The one that comes to mind is Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu came out of his tent, and he took his sword, and he shot a bow, and he went back in. Everyone's like, what in the world just happened? And he said, they're going to fight a war here. Rashi says, they're going to fight a war over here. I had to make a sign, I had to make a nicker over here that we're going to win. Putting an energy out into the world. Says Hillel, says the Maharal on this Mishnah, you might not be murdering people. You might not be drowning people. But what are you putting out into the world? I don't mean just what chesed are you doing? What good things are you starting? What work are you doing on yourself? What energy are you putting out into the world? There are people who walk around constantly putting negative energy out into the world, out into the people around them. And you know these people and you know you don't want to be around them. And then there are people on the other end that you constantly are drawn to because the energy that they're putting out into the world. Now, I'm using very pop psychology, modern terms here. What we're talking about is a person's neshama shining through. This is a real aspect of what happens when someone's neshama is allowed, when they allow their neshama to rise above their instinct and their body. What was your question? Oh, I got a cough walking in here. I was fine a minute beforehand. Huh? I'm going to get to that. First, we have to, how we do it is by understanding it also. First, we have to recognize when we're doing what we're doing. We walk into a room, we walk into anywhere, and we put an energy in. Think about all the different spaces and places that you fill over the course of a day. I was about to say whether it's the van on the way here, but okay, I guess whether it's the stairwell on the way up, whether it's your home, whether it's your room, whether it's a base medrash, whether it's a tefillah. You walk into certain Batei Midrashim, which, by the way, Rabbi Katz would like to have a conversation with you. I might have mentioned this morning that you and Yonatan started learning in SAS by accident. I don't know what I was thinking. The minute I said it, I said, why? Yeah, I know. I owe you money. I don't know. I owe you something. I owe you a bottle of something. I apologize. Yeah, I know. So, figured I'd say it up here. Is that what you could yell at me about? So, right, what energy do we put out into the world? You walk into a certain into a base medrash, and you hear that kol Torah. When you walk into you walk into BMG. I know, Rabbeinu Zmanim, Shai, you hang out. I know, I'm saying you're hanging out. You kick guys out. This is my makom krum. This is my makom krum. I'm only going a certain amount of times a year. Shalosh guns, my makom krum. That's it. Shai walks into BMG kicking guys out of his. Sits in the heights there, and there's a certain a feeling, a certain energy going on in that room. You want to learn because that's what's filling that space. No, that's not one person. That's a sea of people doing that. But it starts to happen. Rav Asher always used to tell us, the first guy to leave his man is a Reitzeach. Why? He said, because a week before that, you start to petter out a little bit before you leave. It was back in the day when it was a week before. You would petter out before you would leave. And then the guy next to you gets affected, and the guy next to you gets affected, and the guy next to you gets affected. What energy are you putting out into the world? What are you flooding other people with? Is it negative? Is it hate? Is it... Because at the end of the day, we can only put out what it is that's coming from us. So how do I feel about me? I'm sorry? So we had a different shot in Knei Lecha Chaver, so that I could have this shot here. No, we had a different shot in Knei Lecha Chaver, but it is the same. But Knei Lecha Chaver is how I'm going to get affected by that. So I want to have around me the guy who's putting out the good energy. That's me, Knei Lecha Chaver. As far as being the Chaver, how am I doing as the Chaver? Am I the Chaver that people want to Knei? So that's where I was going to explain the difference. This is involuntarily. This is subconsciously. Where this comes in, with the Mishnah beforehand, was Makam Shein La'ish. And that was talking about making a decision to fill a void that is going on around you, that the Rebbeinu Shalom puts you into the exact spot that you need to be in order to fill a void and make a difference. But it has to happen consciously. You have to make that decision. You have to see the void. You have to know that. We said like an entrepreneur. You have to see the problem and then want to fix it. And want to be a part of the solution. This is a space you fill by just standing somewhere. By just being in a room with other people. What you are feeling in that moment is going to resonate around that room. It is going to flood other people. What are you flooding other people with? And this is what the Maharal says Hillel was trying to say. Because you flooded other people with that negativity, with that bad energy. They flooded other people with that. And then they flooded other people with that. And then they flooded other people with that. You had the opportunity just to stand in a room. Just to stand in a room. And flood other people with something better. Flood other people with things bigger. How you feel. I remember those Moshe Perlstein, his name is. He was a Rebbe, I believe he has his own yeshiva now in Eretz Yisrael, but he was a Rebbe who taught with me in Ar Sameach many years ago. And I'm talking about the most rough and tumble guys that I had that would go to him on a Friday night. I was always, like, in the beginning, I was always a little bit afraid. You talk about guys who like nothing, less than nothing, the opposite of nothing. I'm saying like just nothing would have been great, right? If they would have just showed up to the meal, ate, and left, everything would be fine. Right? I'm talking about guys who could not control a word coming out of their mouth and cannot. And here you have Rav Moshe, who is a tremendous, tremendous tzaddik. I'm saying kadosh v'nifra, like unbelievable. And his family of, I don't even know how many children, that are 7? You sure? You know? Yeah. 7 related? Oh, well there you go. 7 kids that their home is Kedusha. And having these guys go over there. And I remember going over to the guy who was setting up Shabbos. And he was a titzach of a guy. And I said to him, I was like, listen, I saw you had, guy Plony, and Plony going to Rabbi Perlstein. Maybe that's not such a great idea because, I didn't know Rabbi Perlstein at the time yet. It was older in the beginning. I was like, maybe it's not such a good idea. He's a very special yid, but these guys are. He's like, no, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. I'm like, it's going to be fine until it's not fine, but fine. And sure enough, I saw the guys the next day. I said, guys, I'm like, please. I'm like, guys, how did the meal go? And they're like, that was crazy. That was crazy. So I said, well, the food was good? Because usually that's how the guys were referring. It was either the food or the alcohol. Like, that's how they would refer to a crazy meal. Like, the food was good? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay. Did you eat? They're like, no, we ate well. I guess the food was fine. I'm like, the conversation? They're like, yeah, that was good, yeah. I was like, what was? They're like, Rabbi, I don't know how long his kiddush took, but it took a long time, and it was crazy. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, he was sweating, and he was shaking, and he filled that whole room with his kiddush. And you have these guys who couldn't stand to sit through a laning, to sit through anything at any other point. Here are on Friday night are starving from a whole week of eating subpar food, to call it nicely. And they're sitting by Rabbi Perlstein, and they're transfixed on him. And this wasn't a fluke. This wasn't a one-time thing. Every single week. that guys would see his kiddush on a Friday night. They'd come back and they were like, I don't know what just happened, but I just got like, I don't know. I'm in a really weird space right now. And that's what it was. It was a person's neshama, a real neshama, filling an entire room. You can't help but be affected by that. We have the ability. So why didn't Hillel? I asked someone, why didn't Hillel say this in the positive then? Say this in the positive. Say he saw, especially if it's made up, if it's a mashal. Say he saw a great person. He saw a big tzaddik. So I said because, I don't know how you would say it, but that feich, and because you built people up, they built up, and they built up, and they built up. So first of all, we've said this a few times over here, but aside from that, so the guy, I asked a chavrus of mine one time. He said to me, he's like, if people don't do this in the positive, it's horrible. But the odds are, not the odds are, but the hope is that someone else will do it. Someone else will have their neshama shine, and hopefully that'll happen. But for people to do this in the negative is murder. For people to walk around with this in the negative, it could kill people. He said the negative side of this is so much more dangerous than not fulfilling the... Hillel was begging with us, please, if you're not going to makam she'esh ish, if you're not going to at least allow what it is that you are in a bystanding, in just standing around, be something. Let it shine. Be you. Be proud of being you. Let that mean something. Let that be something. So just to end the Mishnah, so we're not going to have time to start the next Mishnah, but and at the end, those that, so again, this works in both ways. The ones that we drown, the ones that we flood and they get killed, they in turn are going to flood and kill. The ones that we inspire and affect positively will in turn inspire and be affected positively. But at the end of the day, this isn't something that we can quantify until after 120. When we come up and they say, yeah, you have everything on all sides of you, but we want to show you something. That day that you were feeling particularly good about yourself, that you put in that extra effort during a davening, that you put in that extra effort in a shir, I want you to know that affected this guy, which affected this guy, which affected this guy, and I want to show you an entire Klal Yisrael that was affected by you. That was affected just because you showed up for you that day. That's how potent and powerful being ourselves for 5 minutes is. It can cause a ripple effect to affect every single person. I was going to say every single person we know, but people we don't know. And have them affect, and have them affect, and have them affect. Shabbat shalom, boys.